If you have a pet, you know the feeling, right? The worry, the love, and, oh yeah, the absolute shock when you get that final vet bill. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on why those costs are just soaring and what's really happening behind the scenes at your local clinic.
You know that sticker shock, that feeling you get when the receptionist slides the bill across the counter? Well, it isn't just you. And believe it or not, it's no accident. It's actually part of a deliberate business model that has, pretty quietly, reshaped the entire veterinary industry.
So to really get what's happening on this huge national scale, let's start small. Let's start with a personal story. One that I have a feeling will sound painfully familiar to a lot of you out there.
This story is about a dog owner whose 8-year-old dog, Utah, just stopped eating one day. A quick trip to the vet showed fluid in her chest, a really critical situation. So they rushed her to an emergency hospital, a place called Blue Pearl, just desperate for some answers. But what happened next was this grueling 6-month journey that left them feeling not just worried for their dog, but in their own words, exploited.
So, after a whole battery of tests, x-rays, you name it, the hospital still couldn't give them a clear diagnosis for what was wrong with Utah. But they did provide something pretty definitive. This bill. Over $3,000. And it had to be paid, right then, immediately. And get this, that was just to walk out the door. That didn't even include the thousands more they might need for a potential surgery.
And here's the thing, Utah's story, it's not some isolated incident. It's really a snapshot of a much, much larger national trend. So let's zoom out from this one personal, painful experience and look at the bigger picture, what some people are now calling the rise of big vet.
Okay, so here's the whole problem in just 2 numbers. Over the last 10 years, general inflation, the cost of everything, went up about 30%. But the cost of taking your pet to the vet, that shot up a staggering 60%. It's literally rising at double the rate of almost everything else we buy.
So what's driving this? Well, we are. I mean, our pets have become such central members of our families. We have 94 million households in America with a pet, and last year, we all spent a collective $38 billion on their health care. And when you have that kind of massive, reliable spending, it gets noticed.
And that brings us to this term that's being used to describe the trend, big vet. It's basically a shorthand for a huge shift in the industry. The systematic takeover of thousands of independent, local vet clinics and emergency hospitals by these giant corporations and Wall Street private equity firms.
So who exactly are these corporate players? Who really owns your vet? As you're about to see, the answer is, well, it's pretty surprising.
A financial journalist named Helene Olin actually stumbled onto this whole thing when her own dog got sick. Her vet recommended a few cardiologists, but all the names were these big chains like VCA and Blue Pearl. Yep, the same emergency hospital that treated Utah. And she just started wondering, wait, where are all the independent vets? And who owns these giant chains anyway?
The answer she found? The company that makes M&Ms, Snickers, and Skittles. No, seriously, the candy company.
So this is the new landscape of pet care. Mars Incorporated, the food and candy giant, is the single largest owner of veterinarians in the entire country. They control over 2,000 clinics through brands you've probably heard of, like VCA, Blue Pearl, and Banfield. And the second biggest player? It's a firm called JAB Holding Company. They own the National Veterinary Association, but you probably know them as the people who own Panera, Pete's Coffee, and Einstein Bake.
And the scale of this takeover is just immense. These big corporate firms now own nearly half of all general practice clinics. But what's even more striking is that they own up to 75% of all the emergency and specialty hospitals. You know, the very places we're rushing to when we're at our most vulnerable and desperate.
So, why? Why is Wall Street suddenly so interested in our pets? Well, it all comes down to a very specific financial strategy that's designed for one thing and one thing only: making a profit.
The strategy even has a name. It's called a roll-up. And the concept is actually pretty simple. A private equity firm, usually using a lot of borrowed money, goes on a shopping spree. They buy up dozens and dozens of small, independent vet clinics. Then they roll them up into one single massive company.
This playbook, it's got 4 basic steps. First, they buy the clinics. Second, they consolidate them all into one big group.
Third, and this is crucial, they maximize cash flow by jacking up prices and controlling costs. And then fourth, and this is really the key to the whole thing, they aren't building a business for the long haul. The real goal is to flip the entire group, sell it to an even bigger company in just 4 to 6 years, and walk away with a massive profit.
And the motive behind this whole playbook? It's chillingly simple. As that journalist, Helene Olen, puts it, they see people who will pay the bill no matter what. Our deep, emotional connection to our pets, our love for them, it makes us a reliable, recession-proof source of revenue.
So what's the real-world impact of all this? What is the true cost when our pet's health becomes just another financial asset on a balance sheet?
Well, the corporate goal is crystal clear. Consolidate all these clinics to gain greater pricing power. For us, the impact is just as clear. Prices go up. And as cutting costs becomes a top priority, the actual quality of the service itself can start to go down.
And the ripple effects, they touch everyone. We, the pet owners, were the ones facing higher and, frankly, less transparent bills. Our pets, they risk having their care decisions influenced by profit margins. And even the vets themselves feel the pressure of these new corporate demands, while the few independent clinics that are left really struggle to compete.
Which really leaves us with this one fundamental question. When the entire business model is built around a short-term flip, and our love for our pets is just seen as a reliable revenue stream, who is truly looking out for the health and well-being of our pets?